Berlin gallery. She welcomes you all. And we're delighted this evening to be able to have this wonderful panel with us to take a deep dive into Congolese art, culture, and design. And so we have Zemba Luzamba's show is on at the moment, and he is able to join us this evening from Cape Town. Hi, Zemba. Hi. Wonderful. So Zemba Luzamba, the artist who's responsible for this incredible show this evening. And we have Alain Defise from the Defise Foundation, and we have Bola Mosuro, who is a very well-respected journalist from the BBC, or former BBC. So just to give you a little bit of background on our three speakers, and then I will hand over to them. So Zemba is a Congolese artist, born in 1973 in the DRC, and in about 2000 he moved to South Africa, to Cape Town, where he now lives and works. He's shown his work all over the world, in America, in Africa, in Europe, and he was part of a very important exhibition at Zeitsmocker in Cape Town a couple of years ago, which covered 100 years of black figurative art, and Zemba was part of that very monumental exhibition. He was recently part of an exhibition at the Toledo Museum of Art in America called Strategic Interplay, where his paintings of chess players were featured. So it was all about black artists and chess. So we're delighted to have him here. And then we have Alain Defise, who is a philanthropist, an art collector, and co-founder of the Defise Foundation. This foundation was set up relatively recently, but it's already going guns, going full strength, and it's here to support and champion Congolese art, and to sort of develop links between Congolese art and other art communities around the world. So thank you, Alain, for joining us.
Thank you.
And then we have Bola Mosuro, who spent 30 years, I believe, or maybe 31 years with BBC in the World Service. Presenting all of their Africa-focused programs. I believe Newsday and Focus on Africa. Network Africa. Yeah, so we're really delighted to have you here as well. So I'm going to hand over to the three of you to sort of tell us a bit more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you to everyone who's here. And thanks to the wonders of technology, we have Zemba with us via the screen. And Zemba, it's just, so lovely to be here surrounded by your beautiful art. And I just wonder, I don't know what's really taken everybody else by, taken everybody's attention, but it would be lovely to start with you to say, of all the pieces you have on the wall, is there one which is your, I know what my favorite is, but is there one which is your favorite, and can you tell us why?
Honestly speaking, for me to tell you that there is a favorite part, I always feel that I'm trying to be more favorites to one toward another. Why do I say that? Because I treat these works as my kids, children. So, and I live with them when I'm working, because I work from, it's been since before Corona, a year before Corona, because I could not travel, petrol and this, the traffic, so frustrations, and you have to come back home, so I decided to create a little bit space in my place. And the same way I treat these works of mine, I treat the same way I treat my kids. So it would be wrong for me. I prefer these two things.
That's fair enough.
So I take them all as the same. Though I might have, a little bit of a desire towards one because of certain color or some affections, but I always refrain myself to do that. So I always treat them the same as I treat my children.
Maybe it was an unfair question.
And having no favorites into what I produce, just to give them a semblance as my kids,
That's fair enough. I think maybe, and I hope the screen hasn't frozen. I think the one that jumped out at me the most was asylum seeker. And
Okay.
I wondered whether there were certain parallels, even though you're not an asylum seeker, but certain parallels with the story of a lot of Congolese, or a lot of us, a lot of people who are in the diaspora, and I wondered how much of you was in that, especially given that you, even though you moved to South Africa in 2000, you were in Zambia before then, and I wondered what the pressures of being at home in the DRC, in Lubumbashi, what it was like for you as an artist, as a young man, that then led you to seek pastures elsewhere.
Because, in Lubumbashi, back when in the early 90s, there was no gallery. So there had no chance for one to exhibit. As an artist, we need a space. We need space where you can showcase your talents, where you can, even have a place to have a workshop, a debate. We only had a school that teaches or train arts, but we never had spaces, even from the school. We never had spaces. So it was something that we started dreaming to go venture out of there. Because there was you could not breathe as an artist, except if you would like to be, you would allow yourself to start doing some graphic signs on some kiosk or some small stores, then that's okay. But for someone who has to think above that, then that was in my thing,
And that's, it's interesting that you say that, because if you don't mind me, asking you, Alain, because that's the very, I would say, one of the reasons perhaps that propelled you and your wife, Vanessa, to set up the Defise Foundation, because of these kind of struggles and obstacles that Zemba has described. I understand are still existing today for young up-and-coming Congolese artists.
It definitely still exists today, and one of the key motivations for us was the fact that, first of all, there's a personal dimension to this enthusiasm that we have for Congolese art. And if you allow me to go a little bit to the genesis of that inspiration that we have. And so I'm born in Kinshasa in the early 70s, at the time it was Zaire. And at the age of 1, I'm adopted by a Belgian family, which means I'm between those two cultures, because my Belgian family was very close to my biological family from Zaire at the time. And as life throws curveballs at you sometimes, at the age of 10, I have to move to Belgium because my adoptive parents divorced. So here I am, arriving in the winter. We arrived in December, Brussels, in a small apartment. And there we go, I lived there for many years. And for the first 8 years, I didn't go back to Zaire at all. So here I am, being the only one looking like me, at school, on the streets, everywhere. The only thing that kept me connected to my roots were the art pieces that we took away from Zaire with us. So I still vividly remember those pieces. I was staring at them sometimes, and that was the connection. That's what art does to us, right? I'm sure a lot of us recognize ourselves in this. Art makes you discover something that's in you that you might have forgotten, or some emotions that are completely new. So fast forward a few years, we're in London, I'm married since then, and we get invited to an exhibition of a Congolese artist, a few Congolese artists. It was Freddy Simba. And just to let you know that for me it was a real discovery. The art that I left when I was in Zaire was street art, a little bit like what Zemba said. So you had a lot of self-taught artists. They would paint, and you would buy your paintings in the open market. So you have your chicken, your tomatoes, and you say, "Oh, great painting! I'll take it home." And here I am in London, discovering that there's a show with some very sophisticated artists, and the message was so strong that it really, jumped to my heart. Freddy Simba, for those who know him, he's a sculptor, and his sculptures are depicting the events, the war, the eastern part of the country. So can you imagine the sculpture that I saw where it's standing like grandeur nature type of pregnant woman, and everything is done with bullets, and she's pregnant in the middle of a war. There's a AK-47, powerful image. Then you turn around, you have these beautiful images from Edika Mwanga, which was, by the way, a little bit above my budget already. He is very, very successful. But that's how my wife and I discovered that there is a sophisticated art market in Zaire, in Congo, from Congo. And little by little, we started joining the movement, starting buying some art pieces, starting to collect, basically. And as we were doing that, we were asked to, can you actually help with some exhibitions? And we started doing this as well. And to your point, what really struck me is to what extent the Congolese art market, although you have this talent, was a little bit behind a few of the other markets in Africa. And I'm sure we're going to discuss the details of why that is and how that is, but I can still relate to what Zemba mentioned, which is one of the motivations why we thought that there's something to do. And it's really, really a big part of that, for sure.
And we'll definitely touch on that, because I know that's the whole, reason for your existence as Defise Foundation, is now to propel young Congolese artists onto the spotlight, the international scene, and to get them noticed, to get the showcase that Zemba said he doesn't have. Zemba, I just wonder, when you were in Zambia as a teacher, were there no openings, even though I know you were teaching, but you were also an artist? Did you not find anything on African soil in Zambia that would say, okay, yes, now I have access to an international market. Now I have the galleries that I can show my, artwork in. How was it there in Zambia? And what didn't you find there that you then felt you could find in South Africa?
Okay, you see, in Zambia, teaching wasn't really, I didn't teach that much, was like less than 6 months when I did that to a secondary school. And back then, art-wise and opportunities were very, very limited in Zambia. Even up until now, as you can see, you can check the art fairs or some of the major programs that involve African art. Very few that involve Zambia as well. So I can see Zambia a little bit as Lubumbashi. Because Kinshasa is a little bit a metropolitan and has, its way of dealing when it comes to different cultural and social things. But Zambia is still, back then, had not much opportunities. We only had diplomats. When there is a show, there was only a place called Association of Artists of Zambia in Lusaka. And that was the only place where one, as a younger aspiring artist, we had no chance to have a solo or a two-night show. So only try to squeeze yourself into group shows and one or two pieces, you understand? So opportunities of having a show was very limited in Zambia, and why? Because there are no galleries. The only galleries was that one I'm just talking about, and there was another one called Mpapa Galleries, and Mpapa Galleries could not take aspiring ones. They would talk, they would exhibit and show those who were known. So it was very difficult for not only for me, but for aspiring artists, up and coming artists, had no chances, So you have to keep on trying, keep on, and maybe if you have a chance to speak to some hotel managers or hotel owners who might like your work, they'll give you a space. And the hotel is not a space it's not a place for an artist to show. They can display artworks, but it's not it.
If I can just ask you though, as a Congolese artist, now in a thriving South African metropolis where artists are numerous, why did you think you would have a better chance there? And I beg to differ a little bit about how it is now in Zambia, and I know there's at least one Zambian in the audience here who would also argue with you. So, but now, how easy is it for you to compete with such there are an array of artists in South Africa, so how do you make your mark? And why is now exhibiting here and working with the Defise Foundation and working with the Kristin Hjellegjerde Gallery, how does that help you and how did you make those connections?
South Africa wasn't easy at all. South Africa wasn't easy. They just came out of the apartheid system. How it was not really good for black folks as well. So, seeing us arriving here, that was back in 1999, early 1999, when I arrived in Pretoria. So, Pretoria was too conservative. So, there was no way they could give you a chance to have your work taken, even a piece. So I had to leave Pretoria for Cape Town. Why? Because Cape Town, I learned that Cape Town had tourists. That's made me come to Cape Town. So my intention was that let me try tourists and see if I could get a chance from the tourists and see if I can establish or upgrade myself. That's what I did. Came to Cape Town, and my first was as an artist, and really convinced that that's what I'm called to do. I could not take any other job. So I had water paintings from Pretoria and could not even have the chance to show abroad in Cape Town. Cape Town, I tried few, because Cape Town had galleries none could not take me. None could not take me. So my only option was to try the craft markets in order for me to survive. So that's how I was starting. So I went to the craft market and started selling my work there. So in order for me to survive as well. So I kept on doing that up until few years where I had a discussion and talk with the lady who used to be a director to VAVA. So why can't you visit me and have a discussion and then I'll guide you this and that. That's when I went to visit the discussion. She asked me to drop down my CV and portfolio. Then that was back in 2003 or 2002, 2003. So I dropped my CV and my portfolio. The next thing she called me and said, okay, we can help you. You can do a show here, but we need this product. So that's how I got into the art industry. And still I had a show, I think, and my first solo show in Cape Town was in, I think, early 2004, I think. So then from there, it was not still easy. It was not still easy for, an unknown artist, a foreigner, who just bring himself and, trying to do the arts, So I kept on pushing, and kept on pushing, having a solo, and it's a long story. You have a show, and people don't know you, and they say, oh, this is you, and unusual. And okay, it's good. Then the next thing is, there's nothing. You have to survive as well. It was very, very, very tough. Because back in Zambia, beneath I could not sell the work, but I knew I had uncles, I had relatives where to. But here, you had no one to pay for art material, so you cannot be productive. You cannot be productive. So.
And it's interesting that you talk about you had uncles or you had people who could provide the resources. Correct me if I'm wrong, but one of your paintings is called Black Tax. Is that right? One of the paintings. Black Tax, yes. I believe.
Yes.
And is that the same as the family tax, where if you're in the diaspora, you have to make sure you're supporting somebody back home? Is that what the black tax is, or what is the black tax?
Not only being in diaspora. I don't know, in African family. In African families, not only in diaspora, but back home. I think almost in most of African countries, you don't pay taxes only to the states. You pay taxes to the family.
Yes.
Even cousins, you know them.
That's true.
Promoted to a greater jobs, you've been promoted to be a speaker of whatever, or a manager somewhere. Cousins, uncles, you owe them. But nothing, but because you are a family member. Even win lotto, the family will play their part. It's an African thing,
Yes.
It's an African thing that whenever I learn that a cousin got promoted or won the lotto, so I say, oh, okay, how much money is $1 million? So already I write down, so okay, out of $1 million, I'll get 100. That's right. So it's an African thing. It's something that dated back, not now, but back in centuries.
And
Because if you back when our ancestors were hunters, they will go and hunt an antelope. Once the antelope arrives in the village, it's not only for the person who did hunt that antelope. So it's almost the whole village who will take part, a piece of the antelope. So yeah.
well, it's a beautiful analogy with the antelope, because here we have the hunter, as in somebody who caught an antelope many years ago, because Alain, you used to be in investments, yes?
Yes.
So you're somebody with your wife Vanessa, you used to collect art.
Yes.
And then just using that analogy of the black tax, it's almost I get this sense that you felt a sense of responsibility, that even though you were collecting, you felt that you owed something back to artists back home, but also that you feel because of the struggles, because of the war, because of the conflict, you felt you really had to help those struggling. How exactly is Defise Foundation then doing this? And by the way, Defise is very young. It's only about 6 months old, am I right?
Yes.
And yet already you've agreed to sponsor one residency with an
Yes.
artist,
Yes.
with the Voltaire.
Voltaire, Studio Voltaire.
So tell us a bit more about that and the whole kind of
Yes.
raison d'être.
So, raison d'être, and you talk about being a hunter and being an investor. What I like to do as an investor is to look at both sides. There are a lot of struggles. There are a lot of needs, material needs to get anything you need to succeed, any advice. There are a lot of things we can think about. As an investor, I'd like to talk about the opportunities. I'd like to, because our brain is always looking for opportunities when you're an investor, and always looking for something that we call undervalued. And clearly, for me, it was really clear that the Congolese art market was punching below its weight. We have to remember a few things. When you talk about our partnership with Studio Voltaire and with a lot of institutions in the UK, a lot of institutions, even if they are dedicated to Africa, have actually barely heard of Congolese artists. We have to remember that it's one of the largest populations in Africa. When I was young, when I was a teenager, the President Mobutu had a speech. And in those type of countries, everybody knows the speech by heart. Even 3-year-old kids, they will know the speech. And I remember vividly President Mobutu talking about le Zaïre, c'est 30 millions de militantes et militants, 30 million. Today, 100. So not only it's a huge population, but it's one of the fastest growing populations in the world. So when we talk about the opportunity, you have a few things I'd like to mention about what makes Congolese art. Where do we feel the urge to make sure that Congolese art has a seat at the table? It's part of the conversation. At the end of the day, it's a conversation. We're all in this together. We love, one day, we focus on Congolese artists, African artists, and at the end of the day, it's artist, right? But what are the particularities? One thing I would say, and I don't know if anybody from Zambia or anybody would contradict me, but the creativity of the Congolese population is absolutely remarkable. So we're talking creativity of the population, right? There's a say, back in the 80s, we used to talk about when somebody doesn't know how to do something, they would say Article 15. Article 15 allegedly is an article that's missing in the Zaire constitution. So it's basically, just find a way. Just find a way to get through it. So they would say Article 15. So people have been deprived for so many things that they've learned to find a way. I've been surprised by how imaginative the population is. I found myself in a taxi in Kinshasa, and you look at the taxi is a Peugeot, but then to ignite it, you have the key of a Volkswagen, right? Because the Peugeot didn't work, so they built another one, the Volkswagen one, and off you go, the taxi drives. So all that creativity of 100 million people is something everybody should tap into. And I'm sick and tired as an investor of learning that we need to switch the narrative. Every conferences I hear talking about Congo is about minerals, is the richest country on earth. Well, ask the population, right, what they think about it. It's about the war, and here we have the opportunity to switch the narrative and to go to my favorite say is that the real value in Congo is above ground, right? It's that population. And art is a way of expressing that. That's a great opportunity for everybody around the world to discover that creativity through the artist. And then we can make the leap from that actually the whole population is creative. So I'm getting a bit enthusiastic about this, but I think that's one of the key things that motivate us. It's also looking at the opportunity, looking at what Zemba said. A few things we believe are missing in Congo. There's always this question of where does that discrepancy come from? Where does that come from? We believe that market presence, institutions, galleries, all that. We have some beautiful art schools, but we don't have the rest that some other countries do have in Africa. Secondly, recognition. Initially, I was going to say international recognition, but I would say recognition because it's internationally and locally. I think what we're missing in Congo is Congolese collectors, right? So if I have a message of anybody in Congo, and you have a few people in Congo who have the means to collect, but they're not interested. They're not interested. The event we organized in 2022 was in Kinshasa, the museum. Everyone was like, wow, we don't have this type of events here. And you wonder why. So it's a question of motivating, it's a question of that having that resonance and making sure that everybody has the opportunity to experience beautiful works as we have today. And finally, it's commercial success. And for that, I do believe that some artists in Congo, or Congolese artists everywhere in the world, they have to deal with the day-to-day. They have to deal with the day-to-day. We're exchanging, even artists and I'm sure Zemba would know, we know a lot of artists in common in Cape Town. Some of them are struggling to pay their rent, to have their studios. So it's very difficult for them to be strategic and to think, hey, this is what my career should look like. This is the type of galleries I should engage with. This is the type of shows I should join. So some of them really need that kind of nose to know how to run a career instead of just, as the message, surviving. So this is the motivation.
And it's interesting when you talk about, especially Lumumbashi, but when you talk about the struggles and when you talk about there should be recognition of what's happening above ground. Lumumbashi, for instance, is a province of in the DRC, for those that don't know, rich in copper, I believe, as well as now rich in coltan. So everybody is flooding to this area in order to suck out of the ground or mine all the rich resources you have. Yet what is going back in? I wonder why none of those resources have gone back in to help fledgling artists like yourself, even when you were there, and now in 2025, is there absolutely no recognition of artists in Lumumbashi and in the DRC that you've experienced over the past 20 years, especially since you've been in South Africa? Zemba.
Yeah, in Lubumbashi, I was invited back in 2017 for a project called Bisha. It's a project with a couple of guys that created. Sami Kaloji is part of it, and there is some rich dudes who finance the project. But for me, it's okay. But let me give you, the same year I was also in London. That was 2017. We had a show where in Bond Street at Bonhams, and I was really impressed. Really impressed. Why? Because that show had African. It was concentrated in African, so we were part of contributing to a charity in Congo. But I saw some Nigerians, dudes, who came, who flew from Nigeria to come and buy Nigerians art.
Yes.
And they definitely bought Nigerians. You understand what I mean? They bought Nigerians. So those Nigerians went back home. They supported what is Nigerian. But Congo, we had one of I know we invited one of the top sports guy. I cannot say the top guy in Europe who's in sports. I cannot mention the sports. And we expected him to be there. First of all, he never came. Understand? He never came. So lack of consideration. But the Nigerians who came there, they told us that this guy flew with a private jet to come and take part of, and buy some bought this I forget the names of that's one of the pioneers, Nigerians artists.
Yeah, maybe.
And then just disappear. Then I'll have them. But they bought Nigerian artworks. There was no Congolese who bought any. There was no Congolese who, except the one that we invited. And those top ones, we thought they would come, never
Turned up.
no, they never showed. Do you understand? So it is not only a fact of lacking of finances, but maybe they are not educated into that area. Some need to be educated. In Lubumbashi, I've seen in 2017, I had a show, they gave me a space. The minister, cultural minister came there, he drank some wines and some champagne, well dressed, and he left. You understand? And to my disappointment, that the only people who were interested into my work and bought my works were expatriates. The lady from France and the Italian dudes. Non-Congolese. It's something that people need to be educated about, especially like in Lubumbashi. In Kinshasa, you find some they do buy, but in Lubumbashi, it's terrible. It's terrible. They will just like, oh, no, we come and drink some champagne there. I know you always get some champagne when you do the openings. Then they say, oh, but you spend so much money to buy 2, 3, 4, 5 cars in your yard. Why can't you invest also in the art? You invest as well, but while you're doing that, you are supporting someone who's bringing some thoughts into the world, So
that is now exactly what Defise Foundation, I guess, that you're now trying to do, to step into that
Absolutely.
breach and to now build. Let's talk positively. Let's talk in terms of the future.
Yes.
And the young Zembas who are still in the DRC.
Yes.
And who are maybe in the Republic of Congo too, because I'm assuming you're helping those across the border too.
Absolutely.
How are you even getting the word out to people. I know we're, recording this video and hopefully people back home will be able to see it, but how are you getting the word out so that young artists who are struggling know that there is an opportunity for them to be noticed, for people even to know the work they're doing?
The beauty of today's world is that a lot of these young artists are on social media. Even if they live in Congo, just to give you an idea, you've talked about the residency at Studio Voltaire. And we're so happy to have this 3-year contract with the Studio Voltaire, 3-year agreement with the Studio Voltaire. And we're actually welcoming the first resident from, the first Congolese resident. She lives between Congo and Ghana. She's going to arrive in a few days, early May. So we're very, very happy with that. Yes, that's very big for us. But what I wanted to say is that through social media, Studio Voltaire launched an open call. And they were expecting to have something like maybe 15 people kind of applying. They got 140. So for us, that was such a motivation to see that, as you said, we can actually reach out. Because we've run the stats, and after that we try to figure out where are you applying from. A vast majority of them were applying from Congo. We know that the vast majority of them are very young, so that's extremely encouraging. And we have to remember that they had to apply in English. Congo is francophone, so for a lot of them, they went through that hurdle. You can feel that hunger, and I think that's something to tap into. So that's the way we reach out to them, and we want to make sure that when they come in, they have the residency, they can interact with other artists, they can actually interact with anybody from the art world. That's what Studio Voltaire organizes for them. They can meet any curator they would like. But we're also aware that this is one person at a time. So what we want to do as well, as a foundation, is twofold. A is to support projects on the ground. So for the moment we have a project that we support from an artist called Gaël Maski, and it's a very fascinating project for us because it's going to the ancient palace of the President Mobutu in Guadeloupe. So you have to imagine yourself, you have basically the Versailles Palace in the middle of the jungle, right? And that's what it was. I don't know if they had an international airport. And of course, that has been now completely devastated since 1997. So it's going there and retracing the memories, because that palace has been inhabited by soldiers and different generations of soldiers, and they're right on the wall. So amazing work is going to do about that. And we think it's good for the country to kind of stay in touch with that memory. So it's a good story to tell. It's an example of project we're supporting actively there. And we're also brainstorming to have something a little bit more for the grassroots, a bit more for the very, very young artists. You wouldn't imagine, among all the great artists we have in Congo, how many are self-taught and how many are 20 years old or around that sort of age. So these are the ones who need support as well, and we're thinking about that. One thing I'd like to say is that we see the opportunity at hand, and we see the magnitude of the task at hand. And in Africa, we have this say that it takes a village. So when we think about the work that we do, the Defise Foundation, our mindset is about collaborating. It's really that, I think it's the only way we're gonna get through this, is with different type of institutions. We talk about public institutions, arts, the art world in the UK, the art world in Africa, in Congo, private institutions. You talked about all these companies who are making a lot of money.
Mining.
Mining, especially mining from Congo. Why wouldn't they, as you said, spend a little bit of money for culture, for that kind of cultural identity? Why wouldn't they? And actually, I have to say, as an investor, I've been an investor in the financial markets for 25 years. I feel a responsibility about that, because if some people can kind of twist their arms a little bit. It's the investment community, right? This we can say, hey guys, we're looking at the reports, you're making tons of money there, but we don't see anything that you're giving back in terms of schools. We don't see anything that you're giving back in terms of supporting the output. Some of them do, right? We have to salute all the corporates which are actually doing, and some of them are really active. But that's one of the things we need to put pressure on, because it's a collective effort.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it? Because without the DRC and the coltan you have, our mobile phones, the electric cars that you hear everybody now talking about because of, you know, decarbonisation, they wouldn't be able to run without what they're digging out of DRC soil, and yet you get nothing in return. So that must be quite painful. And it's interesting when you talk about collaboration, because one of the paintings that I really also loved of your Zemba is the one Coming Together. And if you haven't seen it already, it's round the corner there. And it's very beautiful, Zemba, of, you know, these, I think about 6 people holding, you can see them from the back. What is the inspiration behind that? And I also have to ask you, of all the paintings that I see here, and most of your other paintings I've seen, men feature a lot, but luckily in this one there are a couple of women. So can you tell us a little bit about the coming together, what it means, and who is coming together, and for what is the objective?
Coming together is a world that has to come together in order for us to advance, you know? So if we don't join one another, it's very difficult to succeed. Understand? So the idea behind that artwork is what we're living now, you know. These parts want to say we are more advanced, and the others want to say boom, boom, boom. And which cannot resolve what's happening. Because there is this country that is bombarding the next neighboring country, and the other one is saying, no, you shouldn't do that, we're going to protect and supply you with this. You know that? Why can't we just get together and advance? Because without getting together, conflict will still make us live separate. And conflicts, you know, the result of conflicts, people will never get together. There might be conflict in Asia, but as in Africa, we start fighting because I supply this country in Asia, you supply the other country in Asia. How are we going to get together? Because you supply the NPD of my country. You understand what I mean? So, no, it's, and you must understand that in my work, actually, messages don't just come straight. Messages don't just come straight. Messages are, that's why on this show I said, the theme of this show was Angalia
Look closely.
I forget it.
Look closely.
Look
closely.
Yes. Yes, because it is not something I've been trying to say now, but yes, I will tell that you should look in my work, you should look. I might speak about politics or trying to criticize someone or something that's happening, but you don't see it, especially by just looking how beauty or how colorful my work is. Take a close look. If you don't find something, go and come back next day. Or the next time you are settled. Come and read. And you learn. I don't, you know, my words don't speak that loud to the viewer.
It's very subtle.
And then it's you to take your time, observe. If you don't take anything, if you don't get anything, go. Come back the next time. If you don't, keep coming. Keep coming. Then you, as time goes by, you will learn something there. You know? So, I mean, it is what is about, that's actual with 6 people. It's about what's happening now in the world.
Zemba, thank you very much. And we have a real coming together tonight. And it's just such a shame that you can't be here, but thanks to technology, we have that coming together, so you're still with us. And I think I'll give the final word to you, Alain, about, you know, this aspect of coming together.
Yes.
And what it means for you to collaborate with the Kristin I always mispronounce it, Hjellegjerde Gallery, but also with Zemba, but also what that means, what this kind of collaboration, what it says to the young artists who are coming up, and what it means for the future.
I think what it says to the young artists is that they're not on their own. That we have this coming together, that we have, and I'd like to say a few words on that coming together, because sometimes we talk about the value chain today. You mentioned the coltan, and you have one part of the value chain in Africa, and then but we have a common history, much more than we sometimes suspect. As we're approaching the Liverpool Biennial very soon, I just realized through some academic work that's been done that Liverpool and Zaire, and at the time Congo, actually have a big common history. That actually there's a big community, Congolese community in Liverpool that dates back generations and generations. That comes back from the trade, that of the rubber and all that came into the Liverpool port. So sometimes it's good to explore art to realize how much we have in common as history. And for me, I like to leave a message of hope, because I think whatever we discuss, it looks like a very big mountain to climb. I think it's been done before. I've seen places like that where communities which were underrepresented became really represented. And if you allow me, there's always an image for me that speaks a lot, is the sequoia trees. And the sequoia trees inspire me because of 3 reasons. A, they're the longest living organism on Earth. And secondly, when you look at the seed of a sequoia tree, it weighs 5 milligrams. The adult tree weighs 1,000 tons. It's a ratio of 200 trillion, right? So let's not be impressed by humble beginnings, right? So it's difficult at the beginning, we're small, but we can get there. And the other thing about sequoias is that they're very resilient, and initially I thought it's because their roots were very deep. The roots are shallow, but they are interconnected, right? And for me, that's the image, is really, let's do this together. There's so much, I'm so grateful. We are not from the art world originally, we discovered it. We have some experts working with us, and I'd like to tell Janine Catalano here is helping us a lot. And by that strength of the network is absolutely unbelievable. The only reason why we can look back and say, oh, we're just a few months old, and we're enthusiastic about everything we've done. It's only through collaboration and networking. So for everybody in the room today, everybody online, let's keep it going. Let's keep on collaborating. Let's keep on doing this together, and it's gonna work.
Thank you very much, Alain. Thank you. Thank you to Alain Defise and to Vanessa and to Janine, but most importantly to Zemba Luzamba. Thank you very much. And also to the Kristin Hjellegjerde Foundation. I didn't quite get it. But Zemba, thank you very much indeed. And so glad your line stayed up.
Yeah.
Yes, I had to make sure of that. I'm using. driving. Yeah. Now, I'm using my Wi-Fi at home, and
Okay.